Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to break down the complex and, frankly, brutal legal systems that were designed to control millions of enslaved people in the colonial Caribbean, a system of control that was often enforced by the lash.
And that really gets us to the central, chilling question that all the planters and colonial powers had to face. How do you do that? How do you control millions of people with just a handful of overseers? Well, their answer was to build this comprehensive architecture of control, one designed to subjugate not just the body, but the mind and the spirit too.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Here's how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll look at that broader architecture of control, which went way beyond just the law books. Then, we'll zoom in on the British legal code and compare it to the other colonial systems. And finally, and this is so important, we'll explore the incredible spirit of resistance that these laws could never, ever fully crush.
Right. So you have to understand, before a single law was even written down, control was just a daily reality. It was woven right into the fabric of plantation life, and it targeted every single aspect of an enslaved person's existence. And the goal here, it was total subjection. I mean, it wasn't just about preventing escape. It was about trying to condition people to accept servitude as their unchangeable fate.
Now, this is where it gets really strategic. You can see it was a deliberate, multi-layered approach, right? Psychologically, you had a constant message of inferiority. Culturally, African languages and religions were often forbidden, and even names were changed. Physically, well, there was the ever-present threat of violence. Socially, they would actually reward informants to create division and mistrust. And economically, the whole system was designed to make sure no one could ever earn enough money to buy their own freedom. It was, as you can see, a total system.
All right, so how did all of this informal system of control, get turned into actual formal law? Well, let's start with the British colonies. Their legal code really gives us a stark baseline for what was to come. And what you have to remember is that these laws weren't coming from London. No, they were written by the local planters right there on the islands. And the basis for these laws was pretty simple. It was fear. As the enslaved population grew and grew to vastly outnumber the white settlers, that fear just intensified. And that led to these increasingly severe and dehumanizing rules, all designed to strip away every possible marker of personhood.
Okay, so that's the British model. But what about the Spanish and the French? How did their approaches differ? Now, while all of them were undeniably brutal, the core difference was, believe it or not, philosophical. And it really stemmed from the influence of the Catholic Church versus those planter-driven laws of the British. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. It really gets to the heart of the matter. Was an enslaved person purely chattel, a piece of property like an animal or a tool? Or were they a human being with a soul, however subjugated their body might be? This single distinction, it shaped everything.
And this table really breaks down what that philosophical split meant in practice. You can see the Spanish and French codes, which were heavily influenced by the Catholic Church's view that slaves had souls that needed to be saved. Well, they required religious instruction. They even permitted marriage. The Spanish code even went so far as to acknowledge a slave's right to purchase their own freedom. But, and this is a huge but, make no mistake, this did not mean these systems weren't absolutely brutal.
And just in case you thought those humane provisions on paper meant anything, take a look at this. This is directly from the French Code Noir. Horrific punishments for running away. It just shows you the stark reality. Even in the codes that kind of acknowledged the humanity of the enslaved, the enforcement of servitude was still maintained through absolute terror. So you've got this whole architecture of control, right? Psychological, physical, legal, the whole shebang. But here's the big question. Did it actually work? Could a law, no matter how brutal, really extinguish the human spirit? And the answer, which we see again and again in countless acts of daily defiance and outright rebellion, was a resounding no. You see, the entire system was built on a deeply flawed premise, the idea that you could literally legislate humanity out of a person. And that was just never going to work. The laws failed for a bunch of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, you just can't stamp out that basic, powerful human desire for freedom. In fact, they cleverly exploited every weakness in the system. For instance, masters were often unwilling to inflict punishments like dismemberment because, well, that would damage their valuable property. And you had literate leaders like Samuel Sharp in Jamaica who were following the abolition debates back in Britain, and they used that knowledge to inspire action. And we're not just talking about small-scale defiance here. This was organized. This was powerful. Just look at the Maroons of Jamaica. They were so successful in their armed resistance that they forced the British Empire, a global superpower, to come to the negotiating table and sign a treaty recognizing their freedom and their autonomy. I mean, that was just a stunning victory.
All right, so let's pull all of this together. After all the comparisons and the details, when you look at all these different legal codes, what was the one thing they all had in common? What was the ultimate unifying goal?
It doesn't matter if we're talking British, Spanish, or French, the end game was exactly the same: to maintain the economic engine of slavery. And that was done by systematically shutting down any path to autonomy, whether it was through education, owning property, or even family stability. The laws were there for one reason: to ensure a permanent, dependent labor force.
And that really brings us to the final, crucial point. The story of these laws isn't just about oppression. It's also, and maybe more importantly, about the constant, powerful, and incredible resistance against them. It serves as this stark reminder that while laws can codify brutality and deny rights, they can never, ever truly extinguish the fundamental human drive for freedom and for dignity.